All right, what is going on, people? We are back with another Conditioning Standard podcast with Mr. BK, and not sure if Rachel, she might be popping in and out, but we'll take her if we can get her, for without a doubt. How you doing,
Yeah,
man?
unfortunately, she dropped out just legitimately 2 seconds before the recording commenced. So hopefully she can return, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was maybe not a hugely busy weekend for you with regards to competing competitors. However, you did have Jonathan on stage. How was that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the way it goes in natural bodybuilding now, every weekend we have a show somewhere. There's just that much opportunity for athletes. So there's almost never a quiet time, a boring time in the year. Um, so yeah, we had recently the INBA Worlds, and if you know the INBA circuit, you'll know that there's three big shows on that circuit. INBA Worlds for the first section of the year, the INBA Natural Universe in LA, and the INBA Olympia. They are the three biggest shows on the calendar, and as expected at the world level in Budapest, it was an awesome show. I didn't have the opportunity to attend in person, but looking at it through the live feed, which they had a high HD live feed, it was quality. One little gripe is that posing wise, I saw some phenomenal physiques that really let themselves down in the amateur lineup with posing, just a lack of composure and that kind of thing. But this is, somewhat expected in the amateur lineup. But the quality of physique was great.
Yeah, it did. It did look like a pretty competitive show,
Hmm.
with a little bit of controversy, which is always, um, yeah, always gets the fans riling and anyone that was
Yeah,
there competing. I've heard a few different things, but it's hard to say what actually went on when one wasn't there.
true that. True that.
And how are you otherwise, man? I know we've had a chat previously when training was good but not amazing. Is it a little bit better this week?
Yeah, man. So I mean, look, outside of that, training actually is picking up considerably by virtue of picking up a little bit more sleep along the way. Coming off the season, it's generally speaking, coming off a big season, I will crash out a little bit at the end, and that's what if I'm going to get unwell, I'm going to get unwell the few days thereafter, and then pick up from there. Which sort of did occur at the start of this week, but I have had the pleasure of having a training partner, Henry, for the last little while, and that'll continue for the next few weeks on route to the Natural Bodybuilding Summit. And whilst training has been, pardon me, a little bit more lengthy than usual for time investment. It's been quality from start to finish, with some good yarns in the mix there as well. So I'm very stoked on that front. As for yourself, Jacob, how are you going? We've also got Rachel, who's rejoined us here, which we will jump to in a moment. But how are you tracking at the moment? I know you've recently changed your training split to accommodate for time availability.
Yeah, it's going good. Nice and efficient push and pull sessions. Lowers still take a fair bit of time because I do have my arm volume at the start of those sessions too, which I have thought about. Well, maybe I can run that in the morning as soon as I wake up in the garage with the little dumbbells that I have down there, and that would work quite well. But I'll see if I give that a go. And I think I will pull out my double hinge per week and maybe consolidate it into one session. I'm just accumulating a little bit too much lumbar discomfort for my liking.
And this is the challenge when you get stronger. The stronger you get, the more accurate you get with your training, the more you're digging it out digging out your sets. And by virtue of that, you need to be very tactical with volume allocation. Yeah, interesting.
And I think primarily it was from maybe being a little bit too relaxed with execution at the start. And I just haven't been quite able to wash off some of the maybe accumulated for discomfort in my lumbar. Like sitting down in certain positions for too long is not very comfortable. So for me, that's my sign to, hey, like just pull back a little bit. You've had a bad issue before where you
Yeah.
have to pull back quite considerably. I'd rather be proactive. And we did actually get the one of the guys has a sponsorship with Gym Pin from our gym, so they have a back extension attachment. Well, not attachment, but a sort of it's a bit hard to explain, but you get two handles and it's got a loading peg through the middle.
Yeah.
So you can just load plates on and use a standalone back extension piece. And rather than me walking up and down with 50 kilo dumbbells from one side of the gym to the other, I can now just load plates, which is so much nicer.
Very convenient. And look, in light of some of the issues that you have had through your lumbar structures, you likely have a more narrow bandwidth for appropriateness in reference to technique degradation. To be fair, I don't think anyone should be rolling around with poor technique at RDL. With load comes responsibility. But I know how you move, and even at the worst of times, your technique is still in good stead. But you need to be extra on it in that regard. Yeah.
There's probably a slightly heightened perceived perception of what's going on down there potentially. I have heard that being proposed before when you do get like, and I probably do have something fucked up in my spine somewhere, and that's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's all about managing things and not letting it get out of hand. And like most of us probably will have something wrong with us, so to speak, but it's not a bad thing inherently.
I mean, looking at the prevalence of, say, disc herniations, it's I actually don't have numbers before me, but it is higher than most individuals assume. However, in many cases, it's asymptomatic, and with appropriate management, we get by totally fine. However, if we start our career with top-tier technique, and manage our fatigue across the training career, then, we have longevity. So it's about managing things intelligently. And when you are pushing the envelope as we are, you only know that you've taken it too far when you went a little bit beyond your capabilities and you fly a little bit close to the sun. Okay, it's time to recuperate, pull back, and make the appropriate adjustments. And in most scenarios, it's a small adjustment. The difference of going from, say, 5 sets of hinges across the week down to 2 and then reallocating throughout your microcycle is enough for you to rebalance your desire for stimulus and your requirement for recovery, or simply changing one of those hinges from something that's more length and bias, like a Romanian deadlift, to something that is that reduces loading capacity through the lumbar structures and maybe is a bit more short and biased, like that of a back extension deadlift. Cool. Yeah. Adjustment with managing recovery. Yeah. Awesome.
Are you on the same opinion that you do maybe have to take a little bit of a risk in terms, or not, that you got to take a risk to get the most or be a high achiever? Like you can't always just be super, super, super safe with respects to programming or execution, or maybe like you got that 50-50 one week and you send it and maybe you shouldn't have taken it, but it does push the boundary of your capabilities.
I will say this, if we're looking at risk profile for bodybuilding versus almost any other sport, it is incredibly low. If you look at something like gymnastics, the eccentric loading they're putting the body under, and the unpredictability associated with it, the injury risk is much higher than bodybuilding. Everything we do is exceptionally controlled. So injury risk is very low in general. But I believe that as an advanced athlete who wants to wring out the most from your programming, there will be occasions where you push the envelope and just nudge the upper ceiling in terms of volume tolerances. Or perhaps there is an occasion where you have a small amount of technique degradation. You go, okay, that's where my ceiling is for technical capacity. And if you live there for a long time, you're probably going to have a much more significant blast radius in reference to fatigue accumulation through the connective tissues, etc., which will likely prove limiting. But if you just nudge on occasion, okay, that's my ceiling, pull back a little bit, and continue to spend the majority of your time training through a range of movement that is safe and functional for bias in the target tissues, we're managing our risk, right? Yeah.
Miss Rachel, how are we doing?
Yo, great. I'm in Australia at the moment and it is bloody cold here. I was like, first 2 days, I was like, oh, it's not too bad. It's actually pretty nice. And now I'm like, yeah, it's interesting. But no, I'm good. We are going to come into the end of week 12 of prep at the moment. So rolling to week 11. Time has absolutely flying by. Training's been in good stead. I was talking to Brandon about it last night. I said I don't want to use the E word. The E word feels like almost a bit disrespectful, but it's easy. So yes, there are moments of fatigue, where you get a bit more tired compared to other components. But I think, I lean into what we were talking about last time as well, in that, it's a unique process that not many people do when you think about the greater majority of it. And just really taking each session, each day, and ticking the boxes, getting it done and letting the progress stack, because that's it. It's the momentum, and then we stack the progress and we run it. So I'm great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did review Rachel's interim check-in earlier in the week, and she is a vascular mess in the best way possible. In that, as is quite.
That was nicely put.
I believe the vernacular is walking map. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is quite characteristic for Rachel. She gets lean through the midsection quite early in the piece. So right now there is these nice superficial vascular tissues that we can see from below her navel up towards her xiphoid process. And I'm like, okay, things are definitely, brewing there as we make our way towards the 10-week out conditioning checkpoint. So far, so good. And obviously later on today, we'll review the progress for the second half of the week. But yeah, like from an external viewpoint, Rachel seems to be managing it very well, despite a flight to Australia, etc., which gratefully is only a 6.5 hour flight, but still it is disruptive. Yeah.
And it's awesome to hear that the process goggles have been put on, like blinders with respects to external factors are there, which is great, and it just makes everything so much more enjoyable and easy, as you put it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely limitations to it, and like even when I train, like I got to a point where I couldn't look at myself anymore, because it was not that I'm like, oh, look at me, but it's more like it's just a bit distracting, I suppose, because you're like, oh, look, a new vein. Oh, look, I can see that a bit more. And these days, it's like you wouldn't know I'm in prep when I step into the gym, because it's just that's all I need to see is that particular session, just be in that session and not looking at anything else or assessing my physique until I actually have to do that. But that's where you guys come in as well. So that's been really good. And first show's locked in as well. So WMBF Dubai is locked and loaded and ready to go, which is really exciting. So, let's do it.
Unless.
No, don't put that out there, Jacob.
Whoa, I didn't say anything.
I thought you meant unless the borders close again for Dubai. I'm like, please don't put out that kind of negativity. But no, last week Rachel and I did have this conversation surrounding just mentally sectionalizing. Like, hey, you're getting distracted by yourself in the gym, which, to be fair, it's kind of cool in a way if you're curious of what you're seeing. But if it's a distraction from the work that needs to be done, then can we mentally compartmentalize so that we can focus on one thing and one thing only at one time, so we can excel in that given piece? It's all right, chuck on a baggy shirt, go to the gym. So you don't see yourself, you just see the task that's before you afterwards. That's posing time. Cool. You're focusing on posing, not anything else. And that's something that I personally do as well. I wear a long sleeve or a baggy shirt, I don't care when I'm training, because training is training time, and then posing is posing time, and nutrition, that meal timing, that meal period is just for that, etc. So, yeah,
I definitely relate to that. I think there was maybe a handful of times where I wore like a tank top or something, because as soon as I wore it, you get comments, and that is not what you're there for or what I'm there for.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, baggy shirts, that's what we're rocking. Like, there's no need to have any further distractions than everyone asking you how many weeks out are you, every time you hop into the gym.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to, again, put the blinders on, long shirt on. And I think even with my posing practice, for more than one reason, but I started to look at the mirror rather than look at myself. So like, I'd be a blur. I'd just be focusing on looking at the mirror. And I've said this before, I probably didn't even look at my check-in photos for the last eight weeks that I sent you, Brandon. Like, it was just send, head off, get on with my day, get feedback, get on with it.
Yeah. I think it was after you finished the contest preparation, you sat down and just looked at all the photographs across the timeline, and then you had some comments like, hey, like, were you seeing this at this time? Like in review now, a few weeks after the season has been completed. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. And then we had a bit of a discussion. But I think it's a great way to do it. And I suppose it's a credit to your trust in the coaching. So
Yes, absolutely. Yep. That's an important thing in general, right? You got to have your corner where you can pretty much send whatever they need and just let them, do what they need to do. You can be the robot and get on with it, because it gets tough, and having to focus on so many different things. If you're coaching yourself, for example, and I know you particularly lean on other people at certain phases, and that's super helpful.
Immensely
well.
so. And that's not to say that as an athlete you don't ask questions. You should ask questions. You should maintain your curiosity. And if you have any concerns, bring them forth so that the coach can either explain and or assuage your thoughts. But
I think
it's nice to be able to offload it.
I think it's really important as well to remember that prep holds up a magnifying glass, as I call it, to like all of the things that you might be a little bit insecure about, a little bit unsure about. Like, it holds up a magnifying glass to that. And if you're not careful, if you're not aware of it, that's where you can have that spiral mindset per se. So having that person, I think, in your corner that's really quite objective, not subjective. And I know Brandon coaches himself, but he's also got eyes as well that are like, actually, this is how you're really looking. Because I think it's just the hardest position to be in, because you see, you the best, right? And that's what we encourage athletes to do, is take ownership and have autonomy in, this process as well. But at the same time, like, I think as athletes that want to absolutely give out everything, we're operating a very, very high standard, which means we see all our inconsistencies. We see our flaws. We're like, I need to actually get bigger here. I hope my carbs are big enough, Brandon. Right? So we're hyper fixating on them. And I think as we get further and further into prep, we do start fixating a little bit more. So having that, I suppose, anchor to pull us back out of it and say, actually, no, this is where you are. You're on track. You're fine. We've got these conditioning checkpoints. You're meeting them, is really important, both physically and mentally, for athletes and coaches, no matter who you are.
Yeah. Focus on the process. Let the result take care of itself. The body's a logical series of systems. It will respond accordingly to the environment we present it with. And, results are a lagging metric. And if you are just focused on results, it can work against you. You can let standards drop and you don't see that manifest in your result till later, and then it's too late. But if instead we sort of glance at the results briefly and then really double down on the work. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you put out a good post if anyone wants to have a look with regards to the complacency paradox, which takes that a little bit further.
Yeah.
Onto a slightly different note, we had, again, Jonathan compete, but Brandon had a challenging but very, but achievable task of making weight. Now, I have a very basic understanding. We're able to make a reasonable shift in body mass with quite simple, changes in food volume. You could do a hydration strategy where you sort of load at the front end and then taper off and then load up again. And that can shift body mass a little bit. But I'm really interested to hear how you went with Jonathan.
Let me put this forth. It wasn't a challenging task for me. It was a challenging task for Jonathan. He was the man executing at the forefront. And what made this particularly interesting is that, generally speaking, weigh-ins are 24 hours out. They're done the day before. You make weight, then you roll into the show. And the category he was competing in was men's. It's called bodybuilding athletic, which is basically a height to body weight ratio. For his height, we need to come in at under 71.5 kilos. For context, we were rolling into his last show at 74 kilos. Now, if we're within 5% of stage weight, for a 24-hour weigh-in, that's pretty doable. Through a combination of glycogen depletion, reducing food volume, hyperhydration followed by mild dehydration. And then their following, we make weight, and then we hyperhydrate with concomitant reintroduction of high quantities of electrolytes to ensure that we're not hyponatremic. That is incredibly dangerous. And we top up muscle glycogen as much as we can within the remaining time. And when we had discussed this show, yeah, cool, we got a 24-hour weigh-in like the INBA usually presents. However, for some reason this year they decided, you know what, we're going to do the weigh-in on the day, which was a big spanner in the works for us because it really impedes. Really, we've got the same tools available. It's just that we can't pull the levers as hard because it's going to affect the stage look. So the conversation we had was that, look, there's a possibility coming into this show that it's not going to be the all-time best look because we are going to be a little bit flatter than usual. Are you okay with that? And then the conversation was, are we in the most competitive position for the show? And the answer is yes. If we're 2% flatter with our look, it's still going to be the most competitive category for us. Let's do this. So the protocol for us was coming off the week's show prior. We glycogen depleted down to, if memory serves correct, it was 125 of carb. And we'd spent a good chunk of time, by the way, increasing our energy intake coming into the previous shows. We were operating at maintenance, cruising. So we pulled carbohydrate down, we did increase fats, but the energy deficit was more significant for a few days there. We reduced food volume significantly. We did basically a 72-hour low volume diet. So we were pulling out fibrous vegetables. We were taking our regular protein sources and just converting them to whey protein. We pushed our fluids up plus 1 to 2 liters. We kept electrolytes intake similar, but obviously obligatory sodium excretion would have been higher despite the homeostatic factors at play. We woke up on the day basically bang on. I think it was 71.4, and we had 3 hours till weigh-in, and obviously there is still going to be diuresis occurring. So usually we wake up, weigh ourselves, see how much gap we have, and then we start, if we can eat/drink on the lead up to it, we'll do so. And we ended up sneaking in under the weight cap by a couple hundred grams. Great. And we had 5 hours to top up as much as we could. So then it was great. Fluids going in, electrolytes going in, etc. And one of the biggest things that you're working with here is managing GI volume and GI stress, because if you want rapid glycogen synthesis, you need high GI carbohydrate, and you're trying not to blunt the insulinemic response with much in the way of protein or fats. But simple carbohydrate is osmotic in nature. The electrolytes you're pushing in are osmotic in nature as well. And if you're not careful, you'll get some solvent drag and you'll pull fluid into the GI tract, and it's not comfortable. We had no issues in that regard. We pushed in basically 100 grams of carbs on the hour. Boom, 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 coming into the show. And Jonathan does pick up volume quite quickly. So he was definitely fuller than he was at the time of weigh-in. 5 hours later, it was noticeable, it was great. And I think he was pretty close. I mean, I can't quantify this, but maybe 1% or so off from the peak, from the kind of muscle volume that we know we can extract from him with a longer loading period. Because usually he runs essentially a 3-day load into the show, which is usually 450 to 500 grams of carbohydrate across his first 2 days, and then a small taper, into the mid 300s. So we just did not have that opportunity this time. But he presented a great physique, and it was quite impressive, to be fair, with his categories, just how much muscle these guys were able to pack on their frame. Because, Jonathan's not in bad shape. It's not like we could sit here and just say, let's just pull off a couple kilos more body fat and come in a couple kilos up in muscle mass next time. I mean, he's just not going to make this category in future, because we struggled to clip in underneath it. And I mean, his conditioning was there, and some of these guys here just a little bit more round. And unfortunately, no placing on this occasion, but he definitely stood out for conditioning, and his posing was in good stead. Where's Jonathan?
He's just here.
Yeah.
One thing I was curious about was, how do you go about ensuring the weight on his scales is going to be within ballpark of the weight he's going to present with the scales they use for the competition.
This is a great piece, and it has caught us out on occasion because body weight scales, unless they are very good, are not generally overly accurate, but they should be precise. And the scales they're using are probably going to be calibrated. So, I mean, there has been occasions where we've rolled in and we're 200 grams over, and I do recall one time, I made someone just put citric acid on their gums to increase saliva production and just got them to spit into a cup for about 30 minutes just to make the last 200 grams. Now, if you're a dentist, you might clip me over the ears. You horrible person putting that low pH acid on your teeth, but it does increase saliva production. So there's a little trick for you if you need to get an extra 100 grams or so out. Obviously, you can use active or passive sweating as well. I am very conservative in reference to how much I'd be willing to dehydrate someone because it is dangerous. And I also do not like to dehydrate and concomitantly reduce or hyperhydrate for that matter and concomitantly reduce electrolyte input. So I'm pretty basic with it. If you're more than 4%, 3 to 4% out, I don't want to do it. I mean, we should be able to get 5%, but I don't love it. But yes, that is a problem potentially.
And it's almost like maybe we start using multiple scales just to see how much difference there is from scale to scale as a way to test things out. But then again,
which scale do you know is more accurate?
Absolutely.
I mean, in the end, if you bought a set of good Tanita scales, like a good set of Tanita scales, like they would be pretty accurate. Yeah. But to be fair, most of our guys don't have to make weight like this. It's, as you know, in natural bodybuilding, I mean, to be fair, WMBF at world level, we do have weight categories. But that, again, is a 24-hour weigh-in. So it's comparatively very easy to work with.
Yeah. And you almost don't want to push things too much, to make weight. You made a clear point there that, we might lose a couple of percent in our best look because of the duration we have between weigh-ins. 24-hour weigh-in is going to make things easier. But, if you're roughly within ballpark of your, stage weight or the weight you need to be to weigh in, that's going to yield your best look.
Yeah, I mean, look, what you are doing here is, look, you're still playing with variables that in safe parameters, right? Because we're not about doing no harm is number one piece here. But you're bringing a lot more variability to your system, which gives you less predictability in your outcome. So this is something that we only do with very advanced athletes. And for a first time, for example, they said, I need to make weight. Unless they're there, I would say, no, don't worry about it. There's so much you need to learn about the process before you work your way up to doing something like this. With, Jonathan, we sat down, we discussed it, and he said, oh, this is going to be a cool challenge. This would be fun. I've never done this before. So he was very excited about it. And this is a credit to him in how much he loves the game and how much he's willing to explore his available options, right? But he is an advanced athlete, so it's not like it was a stressful process for him. And look, with a 24-hour weigh-in, generally speaking, let's say you're coming in at 73 kilos, I clip you in at 69.8 kilos, you're 72.5 kilos the day of the show. Like, that's how much we're going to top you up again. That doesn't happen with the one-day weigh-in, so a bit harder.
Well, congratulations. I believe that was the last show of the first portion of the year.
Yes.
And now we're moving into IFBB Oz in 2 weekends' time.
Yeah, we're a week and a half out. So peak weeks went out for the first guys competing in Melbourne. And then after that, it just rolls through Melbourne, New South Wales, Queensland, back to Melbourne for the Nationals. And then from there, I think there's a 1 or 2 week gap before the OCB show kicks off in Oz. And then we're pretty much rolling straight into Season B globally. So yeah, there's really not much in the way of break, but we're now moving into another very exciting section here because all the guys for the start of the year are finished up. And now it's like the next cohort taking the baton, if you will.
Yeah, and there's looking like to be a very competitive shows too. Like nationals will be a pretty high standard.
Yeah, I hold high hopes. Yeah.
Yeah, like you got Pete and a few other guys, and then I do know, I think it's Tony, the classic guy. He's been around for a fair while, and
I think Tony's going to look fantastic. I mean, I've only seen little snippets here and there, but I mean, he brings wonderful density to the stage always, and I think he has found another gear this year for overall muscularity and I believe almost certainly conditioning from the 1 or 2 photos that I've seen. And he's a real gentleman of the game as well, mate. Loves this shit. And I just love people that love bodybuilding. Like, it just emanates through their freaking being. And he is like that. He's not doing it for social media clicks. He doesn't give 2 sticks about it. He's just, you won't see him for 6 months. He's just in the gym, putting tonnage through his physique and rolling in 2 kilos or whatever heavier next time. It's cool. So he's definitely going to be one to look out for sure.
Yeah. Rachel, I'd love to hear a little bit of a quick breakdown on the differences between, say, WNBF bikini and IFBB bikini, given there's quite a lot of popularity coming into this natural season.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm a great person to ask on this, but I suppose maybe if I'm competing in both, I think we're definitely seeing WNBF try to separate themselves posing wise from IFBB, because I think that's why they made the changes, right? In terms of now there's this big change to both feet forward in WNBF, because I think it was becoming too IFBB in terms of the standard front, side pose essentially. And I get that, like you've got to have a point of difference, across what separates you from other federations, but I think WNBF is there in quality anyway in terms of what separates them. But it's interesting, like we're still seeing, as I register for shows internationally, there's still obviously discrepancies in terms of what they expect from things. Some of them don't talk to it at all. Some of them are very much like, yes, and you have to have routines this long versus 30 seconds versus 40 seconds versus 20 seconds. So I think that hopefully what they're taking away from IFBB is that beauty, the flow, and the grace. I think that's definitely being absorbed into these federations, like being more aware of, what your hands do and palms don't face the front and things like that, which is great. Like, we want a really high level of posing that works for each individual athlete. But I think there's just a bit more standardization that's going on in WNBF just to separate them from IFBB. But it'll be really interesting when we go to Vietnam to see the IFBB Nats, and how the athletes pose there, because we know on the Southeast Asia stage, slightly different ballpark in terms of what they expect and how they move. So it'll be really interesting to see. I think we might have to be a bit adaptive to what they want. I know that WNBF was very funny about arms as well, being further away from the body versus closer to. I'm not sure if something was a catalyst there in terms of somebody tried to fan someone else away, but I think that, there's been a bit of that on stage before, right? When your athletes stand in front of each other, there's been a bit of...
Phil Heath.
Yes, sir.
Hey.
The elbow joist.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens, I suppose, and what those shows look like. Because I know that, I can't quite remember her name, Little Lenny, I think. Lenny, who won WMF Pro at the last Dubai Super Show. Their posing style was very wide as well. It was very wide arms. And I know, from what I learned with my awesome coach for IFBB is that less is more, and they're apparently... Judges are now in IFBB really leaning towards less is more, less is more, less is more. So, arms very much tucked into the body, like elbows to the torso kind of movements. So, yeah, big discrepancy, but I think some of the main characteristics are still there in terms of, elegance and flow and transitions, which are easier said than done sometimes in those heels.
From a developmental perspective, I will say that there is very little heterogeneity in the look the IFBB want. Look at the pro lineup. It's such a customized look. It seems like in WNBF, there is a little bit more diversity in what places from what I've noticed. And you can definitely get away with more muscular and leaner quads. Because for IFBB, if you can see quad feathering in the walk, you're probably on the upper end of what they want. If your calves are vascular when you walk to the rear of the stage, that's probably taking it a little bit too far, whereas you can get away with that for WNBF.
Yeah, I think there's a very fine line with the IFBB and like a larger spectrum of what's acceptable with WNBF. But I know that definitely they want more muscular physiques in WNBF. Like I've heard that been put forth a few times.
Yeah.
From some of the head individuals within that federation.
Nice wide back. But the thing is, if you have that back development, you can hide that with scapular retraction for IFBB, so you can create the silhouette you want. So yeah, it is possible to please both with changes to posing and then careful sequencing of your shows so that you're aligning your conditioning where you want, as appropriate, because WNBF, you can definitely take that a little bit further.
Absolutely. Now I've got a couple of questions here. First one, we'll start with Rachel. Would you rather eat 400 grams of mixed vegetables or 400 grams of straight carrot?
What type of mixed vegetables?
Oh, you can have your choice.
Scientist comes in with the specifics.
Probably mixed vegetables. I would say a little bit of variety goes a long way. Yeah.
What's the current mix at the moment? I think you use individual vegetables, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. Very specific. My go-to current thing on repeat when I'm not in Bali is simple, your cauliflowers, zucchini, broccoli, I think, and mushrooms. And then when I'm in Bali, I take advantage of probably a little bit more frozen vegetables that are a little bit more specialty from Australia. Like broccoli is not, they have local broccoli and then they have imported, which obviously there's a bit of a price difference there. But we lean a bit more into the choys in Southeast Asia, like the bok choy, because it's incredibly cheap, very, very fresh, amazing. Yeah. So, yeah, depending on what country I'm in.
Mr. BK, I sort of already know this answer, but...
Look, hey, the nutrition scientist in me says, hey, let's go with this mixed vegetables, let's ensure micronutrient diversity. But you guys know I love carrot. I love carrot to the point of which I've had beta-carotene poisoning.
Exactly.
And I've went orange. So...
Brandon is banned.
I love the carrots. Sorry,
Brandon's
definitely
carrot.
Yeah, banned from carrots. And sweet potato maybe for that matter as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the pumpkin, sweet potato, and carrot of which contributed to my Oompa Loompa look for a good few weeks last year. Gratefully, here in Indonesia, we have a particular type of sweet potato that does not have the same pigment, in which case it doesn't contribute to the total dose of beta carotene I'm consuming. But yeah, that has been an issue in the past, hilariously.
Oh dear. Hey, maybe there's a peak week strategy to be looked into.
Yeah, you don't need to tan anymore, but for the 20 weeks beforehand, we're doing 700 grams of orange vegetables, and we're just going to have you rolling in, looking like an Oompa Loompa. Unfortunately, though, it's quite uneven. The hands go orange with beta-carotene poisoning and usually around the mouth and nose, and you look
probably not ideal.
Liver failure, but it is harmless though. So,
yeah. I think I just go for a frozen mixed veg. I can't be bothered to think about it too much. Although, if there's stuff on special, that's how I sort of get a bit of variety in zucchinis, eggplant. Get those on special, cheap buys, absolutely. Or even the stuff that's about to go off. That is, the best bang for buck. 50 cents for, a pack of kilo of carrots, like I'm picking that up all day, but it's only going to last till tomorrow, supposedly. But yeah, absolutely, I pick up all that cheap stuff.
I need to bring you over here to the local market. I know the volume of
I would
vegetables
love the local market.
And I go down to the local market and I'll get carrot, green beans, a couple different varieties of potatoes here, and we have 10 plus varieties of different chilies, whatever you want, man. And sprouts are my favorite thing as well. So I'll eat easily a couple 100 grams of sprouts on the daily. And you can get this these vegetables within, I'd say, 2 days of picking, which is great. Yeah. So I'll introduce you to that in July when you're over for the Natural Bodybuilding Summit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very around the corner. I think I'm leaving on Friday to start my Asia journey.
Awesome.
But next question, overrated bodybuilding foods, or foods that are synonymous with a contest prep or bodybuilding.
Overrated?
Yeah.
Overrated artificial sweeteners. Oh my gosh. Now, as you know, I have a preference for a diet which is plain as we move through contest preparation, so not to trigger the reward centers of the brain and increase hedonic appetite. And as part of that, we obviously bias minimally processed food selections for obvious reasons of micronutrient acquisition. But I do see a lot of individuals that really lean on these diet-related products. And whilst I don't mind a couple of Coke Zeros, I see it very problematic when an individual is chugging down half a liter of sugar-free maple syrup per day and then repeatedly telling me how they are proverbially urinating out of their backside. I'm like, hey, these are sugar alcohols. You shouldn't be messing with them, or do so very sparingly. And that's what I'd say is overrated, is these diet products. Keep it simple. You will have limited issues in reference to digestion.
Absolutely. Rachel?
Stole my answer, man. But if we contention, I suppose if we're looking at not necessarily prep related, but overall, everything has protein in it these days. Everything. Even like there's now like protein enhanced peanut butters, which already naturally has protein in it, but there's ones that you can get that have more protein in it. And I saw some lollies the other day that have protein in them. I just feel like there's a protein freaking epidemic. And I don't understand. Maybe it's just because I could eat everything that I look at the moment, but but I understand that there is a degree there of Gen Pop that naturally has a really difficult time getting protein in. But I think that there's also, it needs to be a degree of education and understanding as to what protein is as a source. Like if you're going to get it because it's been injected into another product and you're still telling me that you're hungry, then perhaps you should eat some chicken or the actual natural source. You see where I'm getting here? Like, I think people they're going to pick that because it's got protein in it. So therefore, I need to have protein in absolutely every single thing I eat. So I think that's been misconstrued and the message has been quite convoluted as to the role of protein. And now we're just seeing this oversimplification and
good marketing.
This spread.
Is what it is.
Absolutely, it's great marketing. It's now, though, relying on people to not understand what it is in itself and how it operates, and therefore they're now spending this extra money to go and get stuff that's got another 5 grams of protein added to it, or they'll call a health bar a protein bar, and it's got 7 grams of protein. It's not a protein bar. So yeah, that annoys me, and especially when you're telling me, actually, I'm really hungry, but all this stuff like it says it has protein in it, and I'm like. Anyway, go back to basics. That's what I say. Like, we complicate stuff so much, and that's like sugar alcohols, as Brandon said. Like, there's such a complication focused on like palatability that people sometimes, I think, ignore the concept of satiety as well, right? I'd rather be full and feel content than have something that is really sweet but doesn't actually fill me up, right? Again,
I will say this: when you're one is if I was selling a product, I would be very in tune with the market trends. The market trends are very protein related. Second to that, nutrition scientists spend, companies spend huge quantities of money on nutrition scientists to curate the flavor and mouthfeel of products to make them purposefully more moreish. And if I can package it in a manner of which says it's high in protein and then supposedly salubrious, the consumer will consume more of it, in part due to flavor, mouthfeel, etc., but also because you are taking away their preconceived inhibitions surrounding this product not being not being healthy, for example. So you got popcorn that's protein popcorn, okay, for example, and someone's going to eat 2 kilos of the stuff over the weekend.
So
I think it's great
Brandon,
marketing, but
I have to interject because of recent there has been released high protein chicken breast, which is probably the most absurd reiterations of a high protein food, but I don't really want to give it too much airtime than what it deserves.
Is it like dried chicken breast or something? So it's
Honestly,
highly concentrated.
I don't even want to look at it, but because chicken breast is quite simply one of the densest protein sources
22%,
with respect to calories as well.
Yeah,
that you could probably get your hands on.
Is that your overrated diet food there, Jacob?
No, it's not. I've got 2. One of them is I know the guy who's made these, so I don't think these are bad inherently. However, I think they're overrated. Is your FroPro cheesecakes or like the mud cakes you get in the freezer sections, right? It's like 200 calories or 300 calories per slice of cheesecake. I've tried it. It's honestly not even worth the calories. You may as well just have a piece of cheesecake if you really want one. Yeah, it's just not worth it. Definitely overrated. And again, it sort of leans into that high protein marketing. Not a big fan. And any of the other sort of diet desserts where they've mixed and matched certain things to get the calories slightly lower, and again advertise it as a diet related dessert. It's like you take the first mouthful and you're like, why did I even purchase this for the cost as well as the nutrition value? My other one, it is flavored cream of rice.
Flavored cream of rice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Extreme, like when you can purchase rice flour or even rice if you want to save a little couple of extra dollars and whiz it up. I think the price tag is actually ridiculous for how much they charge for flavored cream of rice when it's already quite simple to add a bit of cinnamon, add a bit of nutmeg, add a bit of cocoa powder, and that makes a massive difference.
I think you're looking at about 6-7 times the price. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And on the topic of the protein cheesecakes, for example, I will say that my exposure to this kind of thing, or really at Rachel and I's exposure, is very minimal given the lack of availability of these sort of products in Indonesia. And, a frequent question that comes up from those outside of our direct circle is like, man, it must be very hard to do a contest preparation in Indonesia. Now, to me, I cannot understand that because this is our paradise. I have access to tropical fruit. I have access to fresh vegetables. Now, obviously, if you want specialty vegetables imported, it's going to cost you more than what you'd pay in Australia. However, if you like Asian vegetables, which we do, then you've got cost-effective vegetables and you've got really fresh product. Now, Rachel and I's diet is mostly minimally processed. We're talking oats, potato, fruit, vegetables for carbohydrate sources. We got dairy products and meat for our protein, and then we have some avocado, nuts, etc. for fats. It's simple but highly nutritious, and that's the way we enjoy eating, and it's also goal specific. So these other products, to me, it's easier that it's just not available. I'm not focused on high protein cheesecake, and it's not a thing. So yeah, keeps it simple.
Yeah, it's very funny, the alternate viewpoints. But I think, even as you both would have experienced, when you are dieting and when you do restrict your foods to a certain category, but basically minimally processed and whole foods, everything tastes so much better. Carrot becomes like a lolly, a delicacy. Green beans, like, oh my god, what is this? So if you eat well, all those foods become more palatable, because that's what you're exposed to.
And if most of your food in the off season is minimally processed, then you don't have to restrict your diet. As in, my diet is not restricted from normal. It just is the same, or maybe a little less of one thing, a little more of another. So we might go from most of the carbohydrate from rice to potato to pumpkin. It's just adjusting, let's say, ratios, for example, to accommodate for the energy reduction we need and keeping in a dose of volume that's appropriate for satiety and satiation management. But it doesn't feel overly restrictive if you have a nice base diet. And most individuals everyone, to be fair, should have a good base diet that is highly nutritious.
Absolutely. All right.
And just to wrap up on that piece, by the way, I will mention
BK, wrap it up.
Sorry, just to
Go for it, mate.
Final comment on that is,
get in there.
I am halfway disgusted by how some individuals eat in highly developed countries. And a good part of my master's degree focused on nutritional surveillance at the level of the government to evaluate high-risk deficiencies and put in place policy of which cater for mass fortification of products. And if you look in Australia, all your cereals are fortified with vitamins and minerals. If you go to the UK, milk is fortified with vitamin D because of, obviously, that's a lack of UVB sunlight exposure. It's a bit of a different game. But without these programs in place, there would be a significant portion of the populace in highly developed countries like Australia with micronutrient deficient related illnesses. Look in the trolley of people in Woolworths. There are people who have not eaten a vegetable in months. These individuals would have scurvy and no teeth if it wasn't for these programs. So I'm very passionate about, putting forth the notion that we should all be consuming sufficiency in minimally processed micronutrient dense food selections. And if you're a bodybuilder who doesn't want to do that, you need to be an adult about it, because you, my friend, have a higher rate of micronutrient turnover compared to your sedentary counterparts. If you want to participate and perform at a high level, you have an obligation to ensure you have sufficiency in micronutrients. And that is all I want to say on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with that more, man. It's quite confronting when you do put it like that, considering the the financial availability that most people do have and the options that you do have in such a country.
Yeah.
All right, people. Well, thank you for coming on today. We'll be chatting very soon anyway, but thanks for another episode. Catch you later.
See you at the next one, guys.
Thanks, guys.